Hello, everyone. It's 2 p.m. Pacific here in San Francisco, California, which means it's time for The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout where we talk about video games, updates in this case, new protagonists from this year, and just kind of what's going on in general. Jake Dekker, what's up?
Not much. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I've took a brief sojourn, you might say, in Japan last week.
Do you feel way more cultured now?
I feel, more cultured, more intelligent, cooler than you.
Yeah.
Which is a given. No, we'll talk about that in a second. Joey Yee, your first time in the lobby. Joey's a newish video producer. You've been around for a while, though. You did E3 with us and everything.
Like 6 months, yeah.
So not new. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just, but your first time in the lobby, so we brought you on to talk about Overwatch. You're one of our resident Overwatch experts, one of the more skilled people at the game, if I might say so.
I'd like to say that, yes.
Yeah, see, there you go. There's confidence. No, just joking. But yeah, it's good to have you on. I went to Japan last week. It was cool. It was my first time there, first time in Asia in general. I was in Osaka. It was for work. Can't really talk too much about what I was doing yet.
You just went there to play Pokemon, right?
Just went to play Pokemon.
Catch all the exclusive ones.
I hung out in a hotel in Osaka,
Pokemon
Japan. I caught Executor, the new one. It's not in Pokemon Go. I've been playing Pokemon Moon, and he's really dumb now, the Alolan version. He's just got like a giraffe neck.
I had a friend who made like the picture of the Earth and then just his head sticking over the clouds.
It's pretty, just into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I did want to talk about Overwatch, the new 3v3 elimination mode. Jake, you and I played together a lot over the weekend. I don't know how many total hours. And that was my first reintroduction to Overwatch since, I think, Ana. And I wasn't playing. I played Ana a little bit in this mode, but Joey, you got in to play Sombra. You did a few live streams for us.
Right.
I played Sombra for the first time with the 3v3 mode. And I kind of wanted to talk about it, see how it changes up the Overwatch formula, and also like whether you agree with me that this is your favorite way to play Overwatch now. I know we had talked about it a little bit before, and there are kind of some nuances to it that make that a little complicated question. But I don't know. I want to start off. How much 3v3 mode have you played, Joey?
I played not a whole lot. A couple matches with my friends, maybe totaling close to about 2 hours.
Okay.
And for the most part, we stuck to pretty basic formula. One healer, one tank, one damage dealer.
Yeah.
Which tends to work pretty well. And that might actually be the problem. I think it can work too well in the sense that a lot of these other characters that aren't going to do well in 3v3 just won't get played.
Right. Yeah, that was the thing with us. We were playing, and we kind of switched it up every once in a while. Like if we were ahead so it's best first to 3 wins. And so, but it's also elimination, obviously. So, I mean, I got like...
So that changes up a lot because you only have one life. So
yeah, you're more focused on survival. Yeah, and but that's the thing with like a lot of people. I see a ton of Roadhogs. I see a lot of Zaryas between Roadhogs and Mercy. Yeah, but I see a lot of in terms of people that can heal themselves. Roadhog, Bastion, Mei, Zarya just auto heals. Who was my favorite character, so I was playing her the whole time. It does kind of exclude certain heroes from being played a lot. It doesn't exclude them, but I mean, I don't know. I went in with McCree a few times and didn't feel like I was doing much. Like he would have been a good damage dealer because we had someone playing Roadhog. We had someone playing, Mercy. Mercy is kind of like the go-to healer for this mode because you can get her ult. And I think the map is small enough where if she does her ult and revives people, it's pretty much the entire map almost.
Yeah.
It is one map, Antarctica. Jake, what do you think of the map?
I mean, I think the map is fine. What I'm more interested in is just the dynamic of 3v3. That's what I was having fun with. It would have been really nice to have at least another one because, like you said, we played this 5 hours straight.
Yeah,
and we just played Antarctica over and over again.
Yeah, it's pretty much so. Eventually, I ended up playing a lot of Hanzo, oddly enough, because his spread arrow worked really well in the tight quarters in the other buildings. But right away, I would fire the recon, the sonar arrow, into the other building on the other side, and if I didn't see anybody, I'd be like, oh, they're probably over here. And then at one point, I fired over there. They weren't there. I was like, oh, they're probably in our building. We're like, where the hell is everyone? And we searched this very small map for about 30 seconds. All right, what's happening? What's going on with this game? They had camped right at the spawn with a Reinhardt and then a Bastion set up behind him and then a Mercy. So they were just waiting for us to come to them. So we got smoked because we didn't really realize what they were doing. The Bastion just mowed us down. Once we figured out what was going on, we kind of just went in there's a side tunnel that leads into their spawn hangar.
And I just lobbed grenades in there as Junkrat.
Yeah, it becomes kind of... I do like the dynamic of... It's almost like, maybe not rock, paper, scissors, but there are some psychological games you could play with people. They did that twice. We're like, oh, they're going to do it a third time. But then one of us was like, no, there's no way they'll do it 3 times in a row. And they didn't. They actually came out as Genji and Hanzo or someone. But I do like the fact that it is elimination. It makes me think more about what I'm about to do. I'll be way more focused on surviving than I normally would. I especially I know Diva got that buff recently, so her health is up to 600, if I'm not mistaken. So we had a lot of divas, like you said, Joey. There's a lot of tanks going on. Like what? I don't know. Like what character were you playing?
I played mostly as Junkrat just because I'm pretty comfortable with him. And he does, I feel, okay. He tends to work better with a lot of people around him and just getting randomly hit by grenades. But the thing I'm more worried about is a lot of the other defensive characters like Torbjorn and even Symmetra, even though she's classified as as support, but she's a pretty defensive character. People like that, they're not going to have as much use because people are moving around the map so much, and it's not going to give them a lot of time to set up. And I feel like those characters are going to be kind of falling by the wayside as far as 3v3 goes.
Sure. To mention Symmetra quick, they got that update today where she can choose between two ults now. So she has a shield generator, which she can hide, and then it just shields everybody within a really large radius. Jeff Kaplan got on the Overwatch developer update today to talk about that. Yeah. That could be way more useful than the teleporter. Because again, the teleporter is mainly good for... This is a brief tangent. I just like Symmetra a lot. And the teleporter is good for, obviously, getting your team back to that first capture point. Yeah. Then it becomes less useful as the match goes on. But I can see that being huge, especially on such a small map. Not only worrying about the other team, but trying to find the shield generator where it's hidden. That could be a really cool dynamic. But, that's the one thing. I don't see myself ever really using Ana anymore in this mode. She's not going to do enough damage to be the damage dealer. She's not going to... She doesn't heal fast enough like Mercy would or Lucio up close. I just don't... It definitely kind of is tailored to, support certain characters. And luckily, the characters I like are all kind of favored in this mode between Lucio, McCree, I don't know, Hanzo, or just maybe Zarya is my main, and she does really well in this mode, or at least I do really well with Zarya. Yeah,
although I thought Zenyatta, he's support, right? Because he was pretty deadly.
I feel he's probably the best healer in 3v3, mostly because you're constantly trying to hide in 3v3, so he can heal. He can heal behind walls and just keep running away while poking at them.
Yeah, and then ultimates become really valuable in this because, I'd say maybe 75% of matches end before most people, unless you're a Tracer, a Mercy, will have their ults. So then when someone does have their ult, especially like we said, Mercy, she's just... If you're doing damage to someone, you want to make sure you're trying to kill them, because if you do enough damage to them and then they just run away and Mercy heals them, you're just contributing to her ult. That's all you're doing. Yeah. So you really need to kind of plan out when you're going to attack. I did find that, again, I was way more worried than I usually am about what I'm about to do in this mode. And we played just regular 6v6 right afterward. I think we just had a good team, but we felt like we did a lot better. I don't think we died like a lot of us, Jake, when we were playing.
Yeah, you're definitely more concerned with your movement, what you're going to do. You think things out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'd say.
And it does, if you're trying to hide later on, it'll reveal the last two players. If it's 1v1, or if it's just one person left, it'll reveal them. And then that becomes kind of a matter of just finding them when they're highlighted through walls and whatnot.
Just running away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just trying to run away, especially if you're Diva. Like you see here, Diva just gets ejected and then just pretty much waiting to get her mech back. I guess the main question I wanted to pose is, this mode is here to stay, from what I believe, right? It's not just like a event. Do you see this as something you'll come back to a lot, or do you just kind of see this as a one-off thing for you while you just focus more on payloads and capture?
Yeah, I feel like it's for me. For me, it's more of a one-off thing. It's more of just a fun thing. If not everyone of my friends are online and only 3 of us there, we'll do it because since it's part of the arcade mode, you can go into this, and if you do get 3 wins, you'll get a loot box. So there is an incentive to play these, as opposed to, as far as just wanting to get into them. But I think what that mode offers more than anything else is teaching people the importance of their own life. Yeah. Because like you said, when you know that you're going to die and you're not going to respawn for the rest of the match, you're going to value it so much more.
Yeah, totally. It's again, that kind of, especially if you're not playing a self-healing character or something like that, it definitely does make you consider your actions a lot more. I don't know. Do you see playing 3v3 a lot more, Jake?
I think so. I mean, especially though, kind of to set the stage. When we played, it was I had a monitor set up, Mike had a monitor set up, and then another person had a monitor set up. We were in the same room. screaming at each other and like
Telling Nick Margarita, our third, that he sucks at Overwatch.
yeah. So like I feel like that definitely adds a lot. I'd still play online with 3 people I know, but by myself I probably wouldn't. If it was just me, I'd probably go 6v6.
It's almost like we were talking about Gears of War 4 Hordes mode a lot lately, and you and I played that a little bit together, and it does seem like something that I wouldn't value it as much if I wasn't playing with like friends, and like even like over voice chat. You definitely need voice chat for this, because like calling out where everybody is, like I'm about to ult if I'm Mercy or someone, even more so than normal. I think it's reliable, like mainly on communication and everything. But yeah, I'm personally going to play 3v3 a lot more, and I can't wait to do that as long as, again, I have friends. But anyway, yeah, cool. Well, that is Overwatch's 3v3 elimination mode update. Yeah, you can play it now on consoles, on PC. Again, it's pretty intense, but it's a fun new way to play. I don't know. Try that out. Let us know what you think in the comments below. All right, Joey Yee, thanks for coming on. Go get better at Overwatch. Joey's really good. I've seen his live stream.
He's really good.
He played Sombra and was like smoking people within the first match he played. It was really good.
Pretty sure the phrase is "get good," right?
Yeah, I want to kick you off already for saying that. No, just kidding. Scott
No,
Butterworth.
I don't support that phrase. I just hear it a lot.
Yeah, I can't stand it. What's going on, Scott?
Hey, not much.
Scott Butterworth, I think I just said, but just for people listening and everything. Yeah, what have you been up to lately? You've been doing a lot of reviews, crunching on things.
Yeah. I actually just finished a review of Overcooked, which we kind of overlooked the first time. Very different from what I'm here to talk about.
Did you hear that rhyme too?
Yeah. Oh, no, don't worry. That was the tweet promoting this review will absolutely include. There's also the review itself has a lot of food puns, so
Yeah.
pretty excited about that.
Your review is not up yet. But
Not up yet.
Can you tell us whether Overcooked should be overlooked or no?
It is very good. It is an extremely good game. I mean, part of why we circled back to it to actually put out a review, even though the game came out a couple months ago, is just like, it's a great game, and we wanted to bring more attention to it.
Yeah, we played it on the Extra Life live stream. Were you there with me, Jake?
Yeah, that was probably my favorite game that we played on the Extra
Yeah.
Life live stream, and you just ruined everything.
Well, no.
See, this is why it's great.
Hold on a
because you
second.
hate your
You
friends.
take
afterwards.
the food and throw it in the trash can.
No, I got
Pick
to a
up the
point where
fire
I knew I
extinguisher.
had to leave the stream, and I didn't want to just like abide by the rules of the game. So I ended up there's one that's like a ship that's teetering back and forth.
Yeah.
And I ended up just hiding behind a pillar. It was mainly to piss Mary Kish off because she was just kind of running the whole stream. So then I was just like, Mary would start yelling. Mary's really tough to play co-op games with. Sometimes like Rocket League, she'll tell you when you're playing really shitty and like.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't hold
Yeah.
back.
So after a while, I was like, you know what? Screw this. So I just went like hid behind a pillar, was pushing around those boxes. Yeah, throwing food in the trash right when people thought we were about to get a point. It was really fun.
I love that you were griefing your teammates in this really adorable couch co-op
Yeah.
game. Like, of all the games to be a dick to your coworkers, like, nah, Overcooked, here we go.
On a live stream for children.
For children.
Well, not
the
for
kids.
children, but to benefit children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did not bring on Talk Overcooked. That
No,
will probably be
that's-
next week, maybe, if once like your review's up and everything.
Yeah.
Or and I'm
just-
sure maybe you'll do like a discussion here on this side at some point this short week. But anyway, we brought you on because the Division survival mode is like officially out today.
Yeah, the second of 3 planned DLCs came out today, and they had teased it previously, and it's actually been available on test servers on PC for a little while. So Aaron Sampson had previously been on the show to talk about it, but it's actually out today. Like,
Yeah.
it is available publicly as of like midnight last night.
For Xbox though.
Yeah,
Only
Xbox
right
and
now.
PC. PS4 is
PC.
coming in like a couple weeks, or maybe even a month, something like that. Yeah, for whatever reason, there's an
like
exclusivity
that
deal. So
30-day thing,
yeah, all
yeah.
DLC comes first to Xbox and PC. So Xbox PC players, you can jump in. PS4 players, you have to wait around a little longer.
Yeah, we've we like you said, we brought Aaron on. We detailed a little bit like how Ubisoft has been trying to like keep like pumping blood into Division since it released and like rework it in some ways. And this seems like it's, I mean, aside from the update 2.4 or whatever it was, that actually like did a lot of quality of life improvements. Don't quote me on that number. I think that's it. But now like survival mode is very much reworking what the Division actually can be in some circumstances. So you played about an hour now of it today? You couldn't get into matches for a while.
Yeah, that's it's a whole long story, but I did finally get in, and I did finally actually get to play a little bit. So what's really interesting, I mean, as you pointed out, the Division has changed quite a bit over the past 8 or 9 months since the game originally launched in, I believe, March. Ubisoft has done a lot to improve the core experience loop and to add on to the existing experience. I think because a lot of players grew extremely frustrated just with a lot of things that the game does. I mean, even outside of the bullet sponge enemies, that's an easy thing to point to. If this is annoying, why does the game do this? There are plenty of other bigger issues as well. So even with the DLC, even with things like incursions, things like that, it was so easy to feel like the deck was just stacked against you. Like there was nothing you could do as a player to succeed, and it just became this, meaningless grind that didn't even feel rewarding. I mean, some people really like the grind. Eric Tay really likes the grind, but unlike the Division, the reward wasn't really there. So that brings us to Survival, which is essentially a completely standalone mode. Like when you start a survival match, you have nothing, or well, you don't have nothing, but you have what the game gives you. You don't carry in your existing loot. You don't carry in your loadout, your weapons, your level. None of that applies to this mode, which doesn't feel like a complete mea culpa on Ubisoft's part. It doesn't necessarily feel like an acknowledgement of, yeah, we've kind of screwed up the game since it first launched, but it does feel like a nod towards those players who have grown frustrated by the sort of just lack of fairness in the way the game operates. You can now jump in and play something that's totally independent from all of those issues that players have been experiencing up to this point.
Yeah, and as someone who hasn't even played much of the base game, or at least the regular, like previous version of the Division, like the main game, this actually threatens to pull me back in more than anything else. I really like, from my perspective, I want to ask you more about this.
Yeah.
It seems like survival mode grounds the game itself in the setting a little more. I feel like, between the cold, the New York winter, like post-apocalyptic kind of really actually fighting it out on the streets makes more sense for this mode than it did in the original, which felt much more like this loot fest where I was, min-maxing my weapons and gear. It didn't feel like it fit. This one feels like it's a little more, rooted in the setting. Is that again, you've played a little bit. Is that
totally
kind of your impression so far?
I think that's exactly right. I think it definitely leverages the sort of narrative hook of the game and the setting as well. Because, yeah, as you pointed out, I mean, the game as a whole is set in a wintry New York City during a sort of post-pandemic setting. Everything about it screams this is going to be a survival-based experience. And yet, the main game is just like, bullet sponge enemies and restock crates everywhere littered around the world. Like, it didn't really thematically mesh at all. This definitely takes those ideas and turns them into gameplay. So yeah, from the moment you start, your character is actually freezing. Like there is a temperature gauge on screen at all times when you're outside of a safe house saying, hey, you need to get to a fire barrel or find a new safe house or find new clothing to keep this meter from depleting too quickly. And in addition to that, you will grow hungry, and when you start, you are already infected, and that will progressively grow worse over. Like the longer it takes you to beat survival, the worse off you are by the end. So if you take too long, your health suffers. So it's totally doing all these really new and interesting things that mechanically are not only new but thematically in line with the universe.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, you can do PvE or PvP in this mode, right?
Yeah, and it is a hard select at the beginning. Unlike the Dark Zone where you can kind of go in and do whatever you want, you are actually selecting a PvE mode or a PvP mode. And basically the only difference is, can you shoot other human players or not?
Okay.
And I honestly think that PvE is a little more interesting. What's kind of a bummer, at least what I've seen so far, is you can't actually trade items. So if I have a lot of painkillers and someone's dying, I can't be like, here are some painkillers, person I found in the world. Yeah. Which is, to me, the whole reason why you pick PvE. So you can partner together, so you can help each other out, so you can make it to the Dark Zone where the antivirals that you're hunting for are located. So it's a shame that you can't share items, but I mean, you still have to fight NPCs in both modes. Mm-hmm. So for me, choosing PvP just feels like it would be even more punishing. And I'd rather just have a posse and group up and take on the world together personally.
Yeah, I'd rather do PvE. I feel like as much as some human players will be good at this and understand what makes this mode unique, I feel like I trust AI more to abide by, to facilitate the experience I want to have with this specific mode. And maybe that's why I kind of had some problems in the base game, The Division, where, the Dark Zone, Dark Zone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when the Dark Zone, I was kind of having problems with, I feel like a lot of times my experience was hinging on whether other players were, understood it. Mm-hmm. Not, maybe I didn't, I don't know. But it was actually funny you mentioned the fire barrel, back then, because he ran up to a fire barrel right as you said that. But I said,
amazing timing.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been playing, I play a little bit of Elder Scrolls Skyrim remastered on a PS4 and the mods that let you actually have cold survival things. And I actually like that for the same reason. It roots it in Skyrim. Whereas that is why I want to play this now, because this seems like it's not just this loot grind disguised as this post-apocalyptic third-person shooter. It feels like it's this, again, survival-based. It makes sense within the world that they painted for me. And I really want to try that out. I don't know whether I'll have time, but I am really curious. As you said, you're like kind of moving toward the center of the map the whole time, right? Like as you're gathering gear, weapons, like going to like maintaining your heat, your temperature. There's a lot of like a risk reward factor, right? Like you could just keep beelining toward the center, but you might not have good enough gear later on if you ignore like tangential stuff to like actually fight like the harder enemies toward the center. Have you experienced that much yet?
I haven't actually made it to the center yet. Okay. It's actually really hard. It's a demanding mode, which I like. I like that about it, that your first couple rounds are going to be you learning how to survive in this world and learning what demands you're facing. But yeah, I think the sort of crux of the gameplay hook is that risk-reward loop of, do you push further out into the periphery and risk freezing to death in order to get better gear, or do you try to just take what you have and run to safety, and hope that it's enough? That's really the core question driving this entire experience. You definitely have to hunt a little bit. You start with basically nothing. You have a pistol and like bare bones outfit and like basically no supplies or equipment to supplement. Like if you get shot or you're bleeding out or something, you can't fix that unless you've already hunted down and acquired the proper materials or gone to a crafting bench and made them. So to some extent, you have to hunt for stuff. When you decide to make a break for the Dark Zone, that's up to you. But that, to me, is what makes it really interesting. And also why I really want to cooperate with other people.
Sure. And then just like to clarify, like what parts of it are procedural generation? Just where enemies are placed or where items are placed? And then the map is static every time, right?
Yes. So you start in a different location every time, and there are different safe houses scattered. And this, to be clear, you're using the entire map. Like it is the entire city of New York is where this is taking place. It's just in the middle of a giant storm, so it doesn't quite look or feel like it normally does if you've beaten the campaign or just gone back to kind of grind out some of those side missions. Like you're in that same space, game space, but it now feels very different because there's this blinding storm that really limits visibility, and it changes sort of there are no civilians. It's only rioters around, like to maybe pick you off as they kind of materialize out of the snow and start shooting at you. It's actually pretty intimidating. And the other really cool thing is when another human player dies, that will actually pop up on your screen and say like 16 agents remaining. And it's just this kind of ominous reminder that, this is really tough. And like all these other humans that I'm in here with are dying off. It's kind of like Hunger Games-ish when you see like their name pop up in the sky and you're like, oh man, like I'm going to die.
Whether by enemy or by the environment. And I do like the idea, this probably sounds cliche, but the world itself is an enemy now. And that's really cool to me because you could just die like without even seeing another person.
Oh, totally. You can freeze to death. You can starve to death. You can die of thirst. You can be killed by the infection. Yeah, like everything's working against you. You have to actively try to keep yourself alive at all times.
Do you know how many human players populate this?
24.
24, okay.
Which feels like too few, honestly.
I was going to say, like, if it takes place on the whole map, then, like, how often do you even see people? Like,
that
is there like, markers to where people are?
Great question, because no. And I feel like player density is a big issue for games like this. I mean, H1Z1, I think, did it really well, and this is very similar to that game for anybody who's played it. So I would honestly, I hope that they up the player density. I hope that they allow more people to jump in on a particular game, because I haven't had a problem running into people so far, surprisingly, despite the fact that it takes place on a huge map, but there isn't any way to track anybody. Your best bet is to go to safe houses, because that's where other players are most likely to appear.
Okay, yeah.
But in a way, I kind of like going in blind because, as Mike has pointed out, thematically that makes sense. Like your radio's down, you have nothing. So how in this universe would you be tracking other people? So I appreciate that it at least makes sense, even if it does make it tougher to like partner up with friends or something.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
It is really cool. And like I said, I really appreciate that it's a standalone experience. You basically just have to make it to the very first safe house in the game. And once you're there, there's like a separate elevator you can walk over to, and then it just jumps you right into survival. So you have to beat the opening tutorial. But other than that, you can just jump right in. So if you made it halfway through the campaign and thought, this sucks, I give up, screw this bullet sponge nonsense, and if you still own the game, you can jump back in and play survival, and it's just a completely different experience, and you're free to do that at any time. So
what about you, Jake? I mean, you played a decent amount of the base game. Do you plan on coming back?
Actually, when we started, I was like, no, I'm not going to go back and playing the Division.
Yeah.
But after hearing you talk about it, that actually sounds really cool. That, like what Mike was saying, that is what I was hoping for, and that's kind of what I thought it was going to be based on the trailers that they showed. Like, it seemed very much about survival. Like, you'd run into other players just kind of naturally, and like you'd shoot or not, you fight or not fight. And when they got rid of all that, it just didn't seem that interesting. But now that sounds pretty cool.
And like, I think most importantly, it eliminates all of the problems that people have had with the game over the past few months. I mean, again, I think a lot of people got really frustrated with the game and walked away and are kind of bitter about some of the changes that were made or even how the base, the end game, the original end game operated. So this sidesteps all of that by turning the game into this completely other, separate, standalone mode, which is probably a very smart decision given that they were having such a difficult time salvaging the experience that was already there.
I do really like that it's standalone in the sense that, I don't know, I have this thing with like loot games that if I'm not playing it from the start, then I'm going to be behind. And I like the idea that I can jump into this and it's almost like I'm starting fresh with everybody.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe that's just more psychological on my part. But yeah, I am also excited to try this out. There's been one game that I've only ever put like 2 hours into it, and I've been wanting to play like the base game as well since it released in March, I think it was when you reviewed it.
The campaign's good.
Yeah.
The end game is like broken and stupid, and the Dark Zone just didn't pan out the way we hoped it would. But I still stand by the fact that the campaign is diverse and difficult and fun with friends, and I don't know. I really like the original campaign, even though most people have kind of moved on from that at this point.
Cool. So like again, we have talked about this a couple of times before in the lobby, but now that you've actually played it, you're not gonna do a full review, but that's why we want to bring you on today. Like I know you've only played a brief time, but like what's your verdict so far? Are you still it sounds like you're pretty excited to try more.
Yeah, this is the kind of experience that you only learn more it's tough because you kind of go in blind, and that's part of the fun, right? Of like not knowing how things are going to work or what's sort of waiting around the next corner or how you solve the problems presented to you, and learning that is part of the excitement. So right now I'm absolutely drawn in. I'm sold after my first couple playthroughs of okay, I enjoy this. I want to see where this is going. I want to figure out how to solve these problems. This is new and exciting and interesting for the Division. So I'm really enjoying my time so far. It does feel like its own kind of experience apart from the Division. I mean, if it weren't for, some of the UI and the voiceovers and stuff, it would almost feel like a completely different game altogether. Right. So I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it is a little too early for me to say it's good, go buy it. Yeah. But I mean, if you own a copy of the Division and this sounds in any way interesting, I've really enjoyed the matches that I've played so far.
How long are these matches? Because they sound like they could go on for a very long time.
Yeah, in some of the marketing material, they said a match can last up to 2 hours. And I'm guessing they wouldn't last much longer than that because eventually you will just succumb to the infection. If you don't beat it quick enough, you will just die. I mean, the clock is always ticking on you because you start already infected, waiting to get to the drop zone and get picked up.
So if you beat it, say in 30 minutes. I don't know if that's reasonable at all. Does the game keep going? Do other people still try to get there? Do you need to complete it together?
I believe you can win without other, you can just escape on your own. I don't think everyone in the match has to finish for the round to be over.
So you are going at your own pace. It's not like you're waiting for everyone to die or whatever. It's
correct.
Okay.
You're kind of doing your own thing, but if you want to or are able to, you can help out other players who are in the game with you.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to that. For all the reasons I detailed, just kind of feeling more at home in that, not at home, but more connected to that world. Seems like it's much more hostile this time around, which I really like.
Totally.
That is the Division Survival Mode DLC. It is out now. You can download the update today on Xbox One or PC, and then December 20th, I believe, it'll be available on PS4 for any players wanting to play on that platform. So let us know if you plan on getting back into the Division, if you've been playing for a while, how this changes up what you think of the game, and let us know in the comments below. Scott, thanks so much for coming on, talking the Division. I'll let you get back to playing more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat lunch and play a lot of Division.
Sounds good. We are going to bring on Michael Higham. He's a new associate tech editor. He'll be here.
He's somewhere.
Yeah.
He's looking at the door.
On his way.
People are not good at this lately.
Wait.
Hey.
There you go. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, Scott. Jake, I'm going to make you play the Division with me because I don't want to play alone.
I'll do it. That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, but let's play more Titanfall 2 first. Michael Higham, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's Higham.
Higham?
Yes, sir.
Is it really? I'm really sorry about that. But anyway, it's your first time in the lobby. You've been at GameSpot, 2-3 weeks now?
2.5 weeks, yeah.
Cool. So I was right. I was almost there.
You pronounced his first name right, though. That's good.
Yeah. Oddly enough, you were the first. Usually everywhere I go, there's always another Mike or Michael or however you want to say it. Now you come in and try to just blow up my spot. So we'll talk about that later. But anyway, first I want to talk about we've been talking a lot about, obviously this year there's been been a diverse range of protagonists in games, which is a great thing. Regardless, it gives us different perspectives, different kind of, it's not always just this Nathan Drake Master Chief. The Master Chief, being just bomb. He is white, just a white dude. And at the end of Halo 4, they show it quick. But yeah, we just want to talk about between like Mafia 3, Watch Dogs 2, just like the entire cast of Overwatch, for better or worse, like all pretty like cool new protagonists. But we brought you on just because we want to talk about kind of like you played a lot of games this year. And we want to talk about like, I don't know, what you think about certain protagonists. Figured it'd be as good a time as any to talk about it because I'm trying to think ahead. Dead Rising 4, Frank West is coming back, which people are pretty excited about. I don't necessarily like him. He's boring. He has a camera. He's a journalist. Yeah. I don't know. The Last Guardian is a pretty cool like side character, Trico, the animal. But I don't know. Other than that, just like I feel like all the cool protagonists are out this year. So like I don't know. Michael, who are your like some of your favorites?
Looking back at 2016, we've seen a shift, or we've seen a lot more diversity in characters. And at first in the year, where Overwatch stood out to me because half the cast is female, and they range in terms of nationalities. And it was really fun to see because it came naturally as well. Like when you follow their backstories, it all made sense and it all played into this theme of Overwatch, like the world coming together and stuff like that for backstory. So it made sense there. And also going into Mafia 3 with Lincoln Clay and the themes that Mafia 3 was trying to portray as a black man in the 1960s. And it did it in a very, again, like a natural way. It wasn't like forced. And same thing with Watch Dogs, but a little bit different in terms of, the themes. There's not as much emphasis on racism because Mafia 3 is a lot about race. That is the central theme to it. And I think that Hangar 13 did a very genuine job, because it's very touchy to do that sort of thing. And I think that 2016, looking back, is that we saw a lot of inclusiveness and not in a forced way either, I feel.
Yeah, no, it was like, I don't know, for Mafia 3, it was all, like set during 1968, like probably one of the worst years in American history in terms of like, like racism, just all around like political problems between like, Vietnam was kind of like toward the end of the conflict and everything. But Lincoln Clay did make sense within the world. It didn't feel like ham-fisted. He himself was, suffering from PTSD at a time when like PTSD was still not understood at all. They call this shell shock, I believe, still. He was coming back, like you said, a black man in Louisiana or New Bordeaux in this case. It's just like, a kind of a portmanteau of New Orleans and whatnot, New Orleans influences. But it did make sense. I felt like he was really kind of, he was central to this story. It's unfortunate that the rest of the game, at least in my opinion, wasn't as fun as like, I really loved seeing the story. I loved watching where it would go next. I've only played like 6 hours, but like the intro itself had me hooked right away between the setting. But I do feel like Lincoln Clay, delivered that. I think like he was a nuanced character. He wasn't just a black man. He was, with PTSD, he was like this person who had never really had a home. He's searching for a family his whole life. He was conflicted between, like his revenge tale with, like I don't want to spoil anything early on, but like obviously like having a revenge tale, like fuel it was kind of like Tarantino influences, which we spoke to the devs for the whole thing.
Felt a lot like the Punisher.
Like the
from
Punisher
the 60s.
in like New Orleans in 1968, which is really cool. Did you finish Mafia 3?
I got about like 15 hours in. I'm when I play games, like especially open world games, I do a lot of the side stuff, and that kind of detracts from like the pacing a little bit.
It's a huge game too.
Yeah,
It's like 40 hours, I think, if you want to like do a decent amount of the things you can in that game.
Yeah, but I mean the story itself is, and watching Lincoln develop through the story is kind of the driving factor. And I really I enjoyed Mafia 1 and Mafia 2, so this is definitely a step in a different direction. I've always enjoyed the story as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially like the voice acting in Mafia is very genuine.
Sure.
A lot of like the themes and the vernacular is, I mean, a lot of this reminds me of home, almost like the people I grew up with.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's like subtly cathartic to play a game like Mafia 3 and also Watch Dogs 2 when you go into like the modern day and like the tech world and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. Watch Dogs 2 obviously much more grounded in like modern tropes and everything. But again, like Marcus Holloway, black man from Oakland. He's a bit younger than from Lincoln, from what I understand, maybe. But I think he seems a little more. I don't love the hacker culture tropes they use in Watch Dogs 2. I'm having a lot of fun in Watch Dogs 2 from what I've played, but again, this is someone who grew up in Oakland and had witnessed like police brutality for much of his life, and it wasn't a norm, I wouldn't say, but it was not as like shocking to someone, say, in the San Francisco tech bubble. And I think that's watching the like someone with his background and some of his friends' background collide with that kind of new tech hacker culture was really interesting to me. I don't know, like, did you play much of Watch Dogs 2 as well?
Yeah, I played about 5 to 6 hours. I'm still getting to grips with it, but I mean, the tone is like very different from Mafia 3. Obviously, it's a more happy-go-lucky kind of stuff, but it does, touch on certain themes of like what's it like to be a person of color in the tech world. How do people see you? And but it doesn't like dig into that very deeply, at least from what I've seen and what I expect of like what other people have been saying about it. But it's still like a fun game, and it's nice to see like things that are familiar to me. And it's not like with all these games that are like that are putting in different protagonists, it's not that they're trying to create diversity for diversity's sake.
Right.
It makes sense in the context of the world.
Right.
And I think that, as silly as Watch Dogs 2 is, I think it still does a pretty good job of, making sense in the context of the game story.
Yeah.
Same with Mafia 3, and also Overwatch, as we mentioned. And also, I also want to like talk about
Quadrilateral Cowboy.
Quadrilateral Cowboy, yeah. Obscure indie game about, the theme is like 1980s hacker culture.
Yeah.
And it features an all-female cast. But it's made by Blendo Games, so they have like this paper arts style, like blockheads and stuff.
Right.
If you're familiar with 30 Flights of Loving,
It looks kind of like jazz punk, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, it's very similar to that.
Job Simulator almost, that kind of like that art direction.
Yeah, it has that type of art style,
Yeah.
and I love that kind of stuff. But the way it tells the story is very subtle. There's no voice acting. It's all about the context clues, and it's like three females that are who are hackers, and it's kind of this tale of friendship and doing really weird heists in like a 1980s cyberpunk thing. And I think that all the subtle details in that game are really what made it special, because the story wasn't told to you. You have to find the story for yourself. And I thought that was a nice touch. It was a nice change of pace as well as like the open world games where you walk through the story, where in this sense, you, like I mentioned, you find it for yourself. So,
did you like the characters in Quadrilateral Cowboy, aside from the fact that like the way the story was told?
Yeah, I think that you kind of like see pictures throughout the story. You see pictures of like their history with each other, and you kind of like tell yourself the story. And I really liked it in that sense. And there's also the different gameplay elements for each. Like there's a point where you can swap between all the characters and their different abilities towards the end of the game. And I think that also played into how each character fits like their role in this heist kind of theme and hacking stuff like that.
Yeah, Quadrilateral Cowboy I never played much, but I know like it didn't come out of nowhere, but a lot of people were all of a sudden saying you should play this game. I still haven't, unfortunately, but
it's a little strange. It's there's a little bit of a barrier to entry in terms of like understanding like what am I supposed to do in this game, but
sure.
I think it's fairly short and it's fairly cheap as well.
Cool.
So I think that it's a nice change of pace.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't want to touch back on Overwatch, maybe like because we were talking about it earlier in the show. I've been playing it a lot. I actually wrote like an editorial when Ana was released. I think Ana herself was a really good microcosm of why I love that cast. How often do you see like this badass mother figure? And like the reason I love that game's storytelling is again because you just said it with Quadrilateral Cowboy. Damn, that's a mouthful. I keep stumbling on it every time.
It's tough, man.
I love that Ana's abilities kind of and the fact that she's a mother are kind of intertwined. Like her abilities are very much she's watching over her whole team. Obviously, if she's Pharah's mother, you'd think Pharah thought she was dead for a while, if I'm not mistaken, with the backstory, the lore. But she's healing people, she's putting people to sleep. It's not a very lethal thing. She's just saying like, chill out, seriously, relax for a little bit.
Justice needs to take a nap, right?
Yeah, Justice needs to take a nap. She says if she does it to Pharah during Pharah's ult, I think, which is great, but. There's so many of these little nuances hidden, and the fact that she's just kind of, I don't know, she's coming back out of hiding because she feels this protection, and I really like that. Like, I don't know, my friend was saying like he was playing the game, and then she was like, his mom had asked something about it, and then like, I mean, how often do you see this like badass mom character in a game? I'm searching my brain right now. I can't figure it out on the spot, but she was like the best example for why I love this cast. I mean, you have a fucking cowboy with a revolver. You have a scientifically inclined ape prancing around. You have, I don't know, like this jump jet equipped rocket launcher Egyptian security guard. It's a colorful cast as it is, just like looking at like the art style and everything, and you can immediately recognize a character from far away and like know what they might do against you in the gameplay. But when you actually get into, even if you don't get into the backstory and lore, it's just still this really diverse cast. And like you said, like half of them are female, I think. And now with like the last two added with Sombra now.
The last two add-ins were female as well. And it it's just fun, and like you can just play different characters and like have their different abilities, and all just makes sense.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for like someone from Ireland. I'm like second generation Irish, but I'm not like the late great Danny O'Dwyer. He's not dead. He's late in terms of GameSpot stuff. Danny O'Dwyer is very much alive and very well right now.
That's my boy.
He might be watching. I have no idea. I'm not Irish like he is. But anyway, yeah. Cool. So I mean, it has been a landmark year for like new protagonists, which we've been, kind of pushing for the last few times. Like again, I loved Uncharted 4. It's one of my favorite games of the year. I gave it a 10 out of 10. Nathan Drake, I actually thought they did a great job with like telling his story, but like characters like that after a while I think we need something new, and I think we need people that are willing to tell those stories and like tell them well.
Yeah, and it's not like, there's not a place for characters like Nathan Drake. Of course, like, when you talk about inclusiveness, you want everybody.
Sure.
So I mean, it's not like there's anything wrong with having that sort of protagonist. So
sure.
And like also to mention like Battlefield 1 with the Bedouin woman,
sure,
her sequence, and like the Harlem Hellfighters being involved in the Battlefield 1 story, and also playing Emily in Dishonored 2. I was like, man, I was super hyped up for Dishonored 2 because I was like, oh, Emily's grown up and like she's a playable character. Like, let's go. Like, it's gonna be dope.
And she's got like her own abilities that like separate her from Corvo. And I don't want to like rag on it too much. This is just a brief tangent that I want to talk about. Corvo's voice acting. What were they doing?
That's originally why I chose.
That game is so good. Yeah.
That's why I chose Emily, because I heard his voice. I was like, no, I can't listen to this the entire game. Picked Emily, and fortunately Emily, I thought, was really well done. Her voice acting's great. And her character was pretty cool too, although characterization's not as strong, I feel like, in Dishonored as it is in Mafia 3 or even like Overwatch. I feel like there was a lot more.
Yeah, I feel like Dishonored's more about that like player agency kind of choice rather than actual narrative and whatnot.
Yeah. Which, to be honest, it's kind of weird that they gave them voices this time around. Because
Corvo was silent.
Yeah, Corvo was silent the first one, and that made a lot of sense to me because it was just kind of like you play as you want, And
you like project yourself onto the character because he's not spoken. But they brought Corvo's voice actor is the same as Thief, Garrett from Thief, and like Thief is like one of my favorite games of all time, and it's like I'm a little disappointed that fell flat because I also felt like Corvo's characterization
in the new Thief or the original?
The original,
Glass?
like Looking Glass.
He's also one of the 9 voice actors in Skyrim too.
A game that has
more than 9,
hundreds of people.
But like if you play Skyrim again, you hear that voice. Actually, I think
he was the first dude he talked to, isn't he? In the cart, the storm guard, or the storm cloak.
Oh, he could have been that. For some reason, I thought he was one of the people from the Dark Brotherhood.
He might be. He could be anybody.
Yeah, or he
could be the dragon. I have no idea. No, he's not the dragon. I don't think. But who knows in that game? Did they add more voice actors in Remastered?
No, I don't think so.
Of course not. Anyway, cool. So that was we just wanted to have a discussion about the protagonists here. There have been, like I said, some great ones, and they've been well told and everything. So I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. If you're watching this, let us know in the comments below what your favorite protagonists were this year. Cool. Michael, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure you'll be back.
Bring me back, please.
Yeah.
That was fun.
We're going to transition over to a game that I don't even like the protagonist at all. We're talking more about... No,
the protagonist.
You can't.
We're talking about a different game than I think.
The stupid hairstyles, the stupid, like, I can't not wear capris. We're talking about Pokemon.
You don't have to wear capris.
The Pokemon or the protagonists.
Pokemon
you're
are
saying
cool.
you don't like Pikachu. You're saying you hate
I
Owlet.
just
you don't like Eevee either?
I just evolved my Pichu into Pikachu yesterday, and then I also got a Sylveon. That's like my favorite part of the game, just getting like how many 6 EVs? No, 7 if you want the original.
Not
Eevee.
the capris.
I spent at least half an hour tricking my character, like buying different outfits for my character and trying on different things,
I do
getting
too.
different bags. Like that was one of my favorite parts of Sun and Moon.
Really?
100%
My
not
character
joking.
is dope.
Yeah, I'd look awesome.
This is Justin Haywald for those listening and not watching. He recently reviewed Pokemon Sun and Moon. You gave it an 8 out of 10. You kind of came on last week. There was some weird embargo, right? Like you couldn't talk about certain things, but you could pretty much give your opinion on the game. So we don't want to retread that. Briefly, what do you think about this game? Should we play it or no?
Yeah, overall, it's a good. It's such a cliche to say, but if you like Pokemon, this is of course a game that you're going to enjoy. If you don't like Pokemon, this isn't a game that's going to change your mind. It's not like it changes up the formula so much, but I think it streamlines it in a lot of really positive ways. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think if you've never played a Pokemon game, which I'd be surprised if you haven't, but I'm sure there are them out there, I think this is a good one to start with.
It's a good
like you
introduction.
said, it streamlines a lot. Although if you try to go back to like Red or something like that, it might be a little bit difficult.
Well, funny enough, that's what we wanted to talk about today is our favorite Pokemon games. Looking back through the archives, we had not done this in the lobby before. It seemed as like, getting toward the end of the year, Pokemon Sun and Moon is out. A lot of people played it. I played about 10 hours. Jake, you are much farther than I am, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm much farther than you, but I'm probably like 5 or 6 hours ahead. But this
Okay.
is a difficult question because are we talking about the games in general or like the Pokemon introduced,
Our favorite
the
Pokemon
maps?
games.
So just the pat as in one.
We can get into all this stuff, but like right now, I want to know what your favorite Pokemon game is.
Pokemon Snap.
Get off.
If we're
Mainline Pokemon games. Don't try to. You know what I'm asking you. Don't do this right now. I don't need you derailing this. Justin comes on. You're on time today, though. That was nice.
I know because you keep whining about it.
Yeah,
because
whining,
you
says
don't
the
run
guy.
a tight ship.
Oh my god!
I never know when I'm going to
Start
come
running.
on.
We've got a tight ship right here next to the table. Anyway, that ship is tight, dude.
It is.
If I had to pick one overall Pokemon game, and I don't think it's the best in terms of like historic where it stands now. Pokemon Yellow is my all-time favorite game. Like at the time, I probably put more time and like more love into that game. I think the games that have come after it have of course made it better. It is a better series and franchise now than it was back then. But I think Pokemon Yellow is one you can still go back to. You had Pikachu following you around, like that was the first time they
Kinda
introduced
hated
that to
that.
the game. That was my favorite part. If you made him happy, you could turn around and look at him. He has little hearts coming out of his head.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually never like finished Yellow. I just played Red and Blue both. Obviously, okay, this is obvious for anyone who's played Pokemon, but obviously there are like several versions of each generation or each new like Pokemon entry. Just encourages you like specific Pokemon to one version, whether it's a legendary or just random ones, like Vulpix or Ninetales and Blue Blue as opposed to like Red, which had Growlithe and Arcanine and them. If I'm pronouncing Arcanine, yeah. It just encourages you to trade between them. But yeah, I would have to say like mine's that generation as well, but specifically Blue. That was just the one I started with. I saw this is like obviously like many people, my introduction of Pokemon. I saw Squirtle on the front cover. Blastoise is still my favorite Pokemon ever because it's a fucking giant tortoise with water cannons on its shoulders. It's like I want like the next Titan in Titanfall 2 that they introduced to just be Blastoise. Yeah,
so
that'd be so sick. Anyway, I'm thinking about Titanfall 2 way too much lately.
So were you disappointed when they re-released them and it was Fire Red, Leaf Green, and not like Aqua Blue or something?
Yeah, why was that? Like I never played them.
In Japan, right? They didn't have blue. They had green. So they had green and red, and then they had blue and red here. And then I guess for that, they just went with the green version, leaf green, fire red.
Yeah, but then there's Omega Sapphire and
Alpha
Omega
Ruby,
Omega
Alpha Sapphire.
Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. Alpha Sapphire was the 3D versions of that generation, correct? Yeah, and I like those ones as well. But I don't know. I still get such like crazy nostalgia. I didn't realize how much I played Pokemon until like years later when like X and Y came out. Thinking back about how much I played Blue, I was like, holy shit, I played a lot of that game. Between just, I remember like that was back when I think Pokemon games were actually still pretty tough. Like whether it was finding your way around the world or the actual like trainer fights, the badge fights. I don't know, X and Y, I didn't have any trouble at all. Pokemon Moon's a little bit tougher at some parts, but I mean, I think it's more, you go into an area and you know exactly what kind of Pokemon you're going to be fighting. It's like thematically arranged around, fighting Pokemon, fire Pokemon, water Pokemon. You know what you're going up against. And obviously, like, if you're going up into a water, against a bunch of water Pokemon, Venusaur is going to do pretty well, being the rock, paper, scissors weakness for them.
The early games weren't always hard for the right reasons, though, either. Like, it was sometimes hard just figuring out, where am I supposed to go now? Like I'm totally lost.
Because like, there'd be like one line of dialogue that would be like, oh, then you need to take this here, and you skip past it on accident, and then you'd be like, okay, now where do I go? And you'd have the whole map open, and you'd be like basically just wandering around aimlessly talking to people, hoping something would trigger.
What was the cave you have to go through in the dark?
Rock tunnel.
Rock tunnel.
I was talking about this yesterday with John.
I hated that. I dreaded getting to that when I replayed the game.
I was saying, like, the first time I did that, like, I was 7 at the time or whatever, 6, and like that must have taken me like a week to get through that as like a little kid, like just bumping against the walls, trying to figure out where I'm going, and finally it feels so good when you make it to the end though.
What was couldn't you go back through? Didn't you get something that would show you around, like some
you
sort
could
of
get flash.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Back when you had
that
to
was
have
a TM after you get through the rock tunnel, right? To teach
Yeah,
you.
that was
Slave
weird because it
Pokemon.
was a TM, it wasn't even HM back then, so it was like basically just go F yourself, figure this out.
So did you keep a separate Pokemon around that you just like piled all of the crappy moves onto, or did you try to
I
spread it
forgot
out?
What do they
that
call
was
him?
called.
A TM slave, I think.
TM dump or something.
Yeah, TM like dumpster. I used to. I don't anymore because there's less of that in Pokemon Moon. And
Well, Pokemon
Sun.
Moon gets rid of it. You have
Yeah.
the ride pager, so you just
Oh,
call,
right, yeah,
call
yeah.
whenever you want.
Yeah, because you call a Taurus to bust through rocks, and then Lapras to like go over water and everything. Yeah, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, obviously, like as my introduction, and a lot of people's to the series, that's still my fondest memories, I think. Although second generation, which I think you said was your favorite, Jake, Silver, Gold.
Yeah, I played more Fire Red than I think of any of the Pokemon games, just because by the time that came out, I was like a little bit older and I like kind of understood what I was doing, and I had like a team that I loved, like Raichu, Pidgeot, Charizard. But anyway, but I think
Pidgeot,
yeah, that is so
bullshit.
good. But I think one of the coolest things about Gold and Silver was that once you got those 8 badges, you went back to Kanto and you had to get the 8 badges from the original. And like that, I thought that was incredible, like at the time.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed when Sapphire came out because I was like, all right, when I finish this, am I going to go back to another region? And then you don't. And then you don't in any of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure why they decided to do that for just that generation.
Yeah.
But I think that is why it's my favorite, is just because there's so much to it.
It was almost like, Link to the Past. You think you finish the game, then you go to the Dark World. It's
Yeah.
like, holy shit, there's like a whole other second half to this game. Except it was like recalling Red, Blue, Yellow.
Yeah, but it
So
like
cool.
counted as like post game. Like I remember the credits would roll after you beat that, and you're like, all right, I'm done. And then like I forgot who gives you a ticket or something, but you go to Vermilion City, and then it's like basically like remix of Red and Blue because you fight the gym leaders in different orders, and then you fight the Elite Four again eventually.
Who was your starter in Silver and Gold, your first one?
Cyndaquil.
I was going to say, because it's Cyndaquil, Chikorita, who's the third? Totodile. Yeah, mine was Chikorita, just because it had a helicopter on its head. And because I remember all my friends were picking everything but Chikorita. I don't know. What's your favorite starter Pokemon in general?
Outside of Pikachu and Pokemon Yellow.
Yes.
Charmander.
Charmander, yeah.
What?
Really? It's a fire dragon.
Yeah, but Squirtle's cooler.
Squirtle. I wish Squirtle could wear sunglasses in the games too. But then I'd probably pick Squirtle.
Like he does in the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
Squirtle
be awesome.
Squad.
He deserves just a couple of Ray-Bans that he ordered.
I typically go for the fire Pokemon. Like that's the Pokemon Sun and Moon is probably the first one where I went with the green, where I went with the grass Pokemon.
Yeah. Well, traditionally the fire one's supposed to be the hardest one.
Because you fight the water starter.
Because normally,
the other trainer,
you
right?
fight like in Red and Blue, you fight rock or whatever first, and then water. But I don't think it matters at this point anymore. But for a while, like red was hardest, or fire was hardest, grass was easiest, blue was.
Yeah, in Moon at least, I'm having no trouble with the grass Pokemon. I picked Rowlet. Sorry, Rowlet, and then Dartrix, and then I don't even have the third evolution yet. I know what it looks like, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think, again, Blue is my favorite Pokemon game. It's one I played most, the one I have like fondest memories of. I do, except for like Rock Tunnel, shit like that. I do not like that kind of stuff. But I want to talk about X and Y because that was my reintroduction to the series after I stopped with like Silver, Gold, and then I went back to play like a lot of previous generations. And X and Y, again, it was the 3D that was pulling me back in. So that was just, I loved seeing like more nuanced battle animations. I loved like exploring a 3D world. It was, it's like, it's not necessarily 3D in that game. You're still moving on like 4-directional axis from what I remember, as opposed to Sun and Moon where you actually can just free roam, right?
Sun and Moon is the first one that gives you any kind of that completely free movement.
Like it's like Diablo 2 as opposed to Diablo 3, kind of same thing. You could just move 360 degrees in Pokemon Sun and Moon. But I really did like X and Y. I liked the new Pokemon. Was it Harachi, the luchador hawk? something similar. Like he was the best one. You know what I'm talking about? The hawk that
I
just,
know who you're talking about. I don't remember any.
he looked like a bird of war from It's Always Sunny. I had to. That was my Sunny reference for the day.
Painted on.
But
But
like
You see the
after-
wrestling episode.
After the second generation of Pokemon, I stopped remembering their names. Like they just don't stay in my head anymore.
that's another reason that I think I love the original one so much, because 150 felt like a good number. Then Silver and Gold came in. I'm like, well, okay, there's a lot of repeats, but I can get attached to these. But then it just keeps adding more and more, and I've just never bothered to. But like, there's a couple that'll stand out. Like, oh, Trubbish. I remember the trash Pokemon.
It was Hawlucha, by the way, not Hirachi. But he was just badass as hell. Because then you ended up like halfway through X and Y, you got one of the other starter Pokemon, right? Because I started with Chespin, and then I got Blaziken, the third evolution of the fire Pokemon, and then you get Lucario, and then you get the legendary. I really liked X and Y. That was the first time in a while I got really excited to play a Pokemon game. That was 2013, I believe. So it's been 3 years now since the last one, and that was my reintroduction to it. And now I want to go back. I want to play like Alpha, Sapphire, Omega Ruby, and
Those are
everything.
good.
Yeah, just to relive those kind of like the early glory days. I don't know.
I think I'm not looking. Well, I don't know if it's not that I'm not looking forward to it, but I guess next remake they do is Diamond and Pearl, and those games were like
I didn't play those.
I have friends who say that they're their favorite, but I don't remember enjoying that one much at all.
Like, so I didn't play Diamond and Pearl. I did Platinum, and I thought Platinum was really good.
Okay.
How is that different than?
It's not that different. It was just a really solid entry. It did the right
Then
things.
Maybe it's Black and White that I'm thinking of.
Black and White are not my favorite.
I guess there's Black and White, then there's Crystal, and
You have Black and White 2.
yeah.
Yeah, that was weird too. How they did a sequel to it.
Just chill out. I
Make
like
one game and move on.
I've been playing Pokemon Moon and I'm enjoying it. Again, I'm about like 10 hours in. I don't like you mentioned like talking about your favorite setting, like favorite map. I like Alola just because it's pleasant and there's not a lot of conflict outside of these Pokemon fighting, and it's just a nice like the music's like pretty calming. I don't know. Do you guys have a favorite map in general? Like now that we talk about Rock Tunnel, I can't stand Red, Blue, Yellows, even though it's like burned in the back of my mind how to get around Red, Blue,
I can
Yellow. I
see
do
the
like
map
it.
in my
Yeah.
brain, like how it goes up here to go to the Elite
Yeah.
Four and like Pallet Town down here.
And now you can fast travel with.
I really liked Hoenn.
Yeah.
I know people complain that there's too much water in that one, but I thought that was a pretty cool one.
You can't have more water than Alola, which
Yeah,
has 4
but I
islands
mean,
separated by.
There was a lot of like you actually don't end up surfing that
Yeah.
much, and
That
at
would
least so far.
suck. If it did like a Wind Waker thing, they're like, all right, you just need to get to the next island. Good luck. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah, because then it was Paris in X and Y. What did they call that? I don't even remember what it was called. It was just Paris.
Kalos.
Kalos. Yeah,
something.
Kalos. You actually like, go under the Eiffel Tower in the center of the map. Yeah, I don't know. I never played like Black and White. I never played Crystal. I never played Emerald or any of those. I want to go back and play a lot of these when I have time because like so many of them, I think like all of them are on the 3DS eShop now, right? Or at least a vast
No,
majority.
I don't think. Well, yeah, probably actually, huh? You can play them on your 3DS at least. I know that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you can get
Maybe
the
that's one thing.
cartridge.
Yeah. I don't know. I gotta go back.
Not the current 3DS.
You can't. You can't play DS games on a 3DS.
Yeah, no, DS you can. I thought Emerald and those were.
Yeah, but
cartridge.
you can get Omega Sapphire. Or,
Yeah, Omega
which
Ruby,
which is
Apple
the
Right.
same.
Right. Those were like that was last year, I believe, or 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and play those because I'm like trying to search through my nostalgia for the good parts now that I'm thinking like Rock Tunnel and like Pikachu following me around, which I didn't like. I'm not as big of a Pikachu fan as most people. It's again, I was in Japan recently and like this is not news to anyone, but like he's like the Mickey Mouse of Japan. Like he is everywhere.
Like he follows
Everywhere
you
I
around
go.
there. You're like you just walk around and there's like a Pikachu following behind you.
No, I saw one getting mugged in an alleyway. No, I'm just kidding. It was very like a safe city from what I saw of Osaka. But no, it like we were just sitting in these random like bars and I'd look over and there's Pikachu.
It's like Pikachu just comes
in a
out.
corner. You're very fixated on this real Pikachu coming up to me. He serves me a drink. Like I get a
I imagine one of
Sapporo.
those people in like the really big Pikachu costumes just comes up.
Electrocutes you.
Yeah, like an actual Pikachu in the wild in Japan. Anyway, yeah, that was our. We just wanted to talk more about the series in general because again, your Pokemon Sun and Moon review is up. You give it an 8 out of 10. You can go read that on GameSpot.com. Let us know what you think about Pokemon Sun and Moon. Let us know what your favorite Pokemon games are or is. Let us know what your favorite setting is, favorite starter Pokemon. Squirtle's the only real answer, but anyway, leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Pikachu for life.
See ya, Justin. Thanks. All right, bringing Rob Handler on. I don't know if anybody can hear that yet. you say Scyther?
Yeah, he's a Pokemon.
I know who Scyther is. I just didn't know if you knew what we were talking about. We're going to talk more about Pokemon with you, Rob. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to. Have you played Pokemon?
What does that mean? Yes, I've played Pokemon.
What do you mean, what does that mean? I don't know. I know people that haven't played a Pokemon game.
Game Boy, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Back in the day. A little bit of Pokemon Snap.
Nice. What have you been up to this weekend?
Played some more Dishonored, and then kept falling back into Titanfall.
Oh, sweet. Good segue. I was hoping you'd say that. Because we are going to talk about our favorite shooter this year. Just up front, this is not reflecting GameSpot's. Like, I don't like our Game of the Year awards. This is just us three talking about our favorite shooter. We did do like which upcoming shooters for you. Kind of. Can you move back a little bit that way? No, like that side. Never mind.
Did I screw it up?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry. For people listening, Rob just like obscured a camera completely.
This is different.
Yeah, so instead of doing like which shooters for you between Titanfall, Battlefield, and Call of Duty, which all released like, it was Battlefield, Titanfall, Call of Duty. I already said it right the first time.
Battlefield, Titanfall, Call of Duty,
Yeah.
and then Overwatch.
Overwatch was much longer ago, but we want to talk about our favorite shooters here. I'm pretty sure all three of us have the same one, so I want to talk about them all and I'm going to pick one that might not be my favorite shooter this year, but mine, I would like, we all would probably say Titanfall 2, right? We are all big fans of Titanfall 2 in this office. That's one of my favorite games this year.
It's weird because when I was seeing things for Titanfall 2 and I was listening to you guys talk about Titanfall 2, I didn't really care about it. I didn't think I'd like it that much.
Yeah,
And then I tried it.
You should
and I
listen to
was
me more in the future.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I listened to Rob more.
Yeah, you said that. We sat down and played this week. We just played Overwatch and Titanfall 2 like the weekend straight. He's like, dude, I wasn't interested until Rob told me if you like Cloak and Shock. And I was like, Rob is the one pulling you in this game after I ranted about it for like 2 weeks. Gave it a 9 out of 10. It's a good game. It's really fun. Like, and I can't get enough of it. Like the progression system they introduced with it. Like we were talking about how I was just talking with Aaron today in the break room. He was saying like the progression system they introduced, like each new like major upgrade you get, whether it's a pilot loadout or some like new Titan ability that you can change up, just it makes the game fun in a new way. Whether it's the phase shift, whether it's a pilot that you can just warp around with, or the amp shield, which I actually have been using a lot more recently, which wasn't my favorite because it kind of demands that you be stationary as opposed to wall running and whatnot. But I don't know, Rob, you've been ranting about this game since we both went to the review event for it. We've been playing it a ton. I think you're the highest level out of any of us. I'm level like 30.
I've regened.
Yeah, you regen.
We want to open with Titanfall? I could spend the entire time talking about it.
We'll try to keep it.
Just like I was playing a little bit of Titanfall 1 just like yesterday, and like seeing like where like they've changed, and they have changed everything in the best manner. One is the progression system, which gives you incentive to play the game. But what is continually surprising me about Titanfall is finding new ways to play the game, as well as like being able to see different perks and abilities, having greater purposes, and also seeing people counter them. Like there is such a balance to be said about everything in that game. Everything you can pick and choose has like a greater purpose or counter. I was telling Jake the other day, like ejecting the other day, and someone did this to me where now as the game has been out and people are getting much better at, say shooting an eject pilot that you've just killed from a Titan.
Yeah.
You think you got him. You think he's a sitting duck, and then he throws a fire star on your face and blinds you. And that happened to me the other day, and I just went, oh! You're seeing people learn different ways of handling different outcome situations, and that's why they have a perk that allows you to cloak and auto eject, so you never have to worry about dying in your Titan, right?
Yeah.
Like there are just so many ways that glorify like personality and play style that I keep seeing and finding and learning. Like I'm addicted to North Star, for instance, the Titan. Yeah. And the other day I feel like I've developed my loadout, and I'm just like exploiting that, like cloak shoddy with like North Star, like that's all I want to do. But then you start changing up a little bit of North Star, and for instance, I started trying out one of the perks specific to North Star is being able to move around more when you are doing kind of like Farah alt, right? Or the flight core, which is, it's just like a load of rockets. The problem with that flight core is actually that of all of the other Titans is that you're just, again, a sitting duck. Everyone can see you. You're kind of slow. Everyone is shooting at you because they also have, their own incentive to kill you. And then I engaged that flight core, in which you, the perk where you move faster. And then I started realizing like, oh my god, this is now my favorite thing because now I can fly over people. I wasn't getting as many kills with North Star with that ultimate. Now I'm flying over people and they can't turn around quick enough. Now I'm behind them using this. I do that, and then I think about other perks with North Star. For instance, 20% core ability automatically.
Yeah.
So now I'm exploiting North Star's flight core ability, and it's working. Like it is working so well, and I've just changed how I've played North Star, and that's one specific Titan.
But I mean, you say exploiting, but I think one of the cool things about Titanfall, what you just said, is how balanced it is. Like there are still ways you can take that down, and like there's some ways that I feel like people haven't even found out yet that could be super vulnerable to, right?
Yeah. Whenever I die in that game, compared to like other games and shooters of the years where I've dropped off, this game doesn't have that frustration and that kind of cheapness I think other shooters can have. When I die, I couldn't have done anything about that.
Yeah.
And Battlefield, and I love Battlefield, sniper across the map. Just
The progression, you never know what you're
Bam.
going to get in Battlefield.
you just die. I feel like every time, or most times when I play Titanfall, it doesn't always happen, but most of the time, whenever I die, I think, what was the lesson there? And you learn from it. And I feel like I'm just learning every freaking time I play that game, and it's just that's what's keeping me going.
Yeah, one thing I do, I love it for the same reasons I love Overwatch. The game itself, it changes how you look at it and how you play it depending on what Titan you're using, what your pilot loadout is. One recent combo that I just started using like the other day is you could do a perk where your Titan, instead of falling with a shield around it, will fall in like 2 seconds with no shield. So, but then I got the pilot ability where you can, when you're getting into your Titan, instead of like having it pick you up or jumping in and then closing the cockpit, you just warp in. So now I just get into my Titan. I call my Titan in and get into it in like 3 seconds total. So I like deposited my money in Bounty Hunt, which is my favorite mode, turned around and then immediately called my Titan right next to it, jumped in, I was in, and I was ready like to defend the bounty, like the bank where
That's
you deposit
really
your
cool.
money.
Yeah, that's
Scorch
actually
is my favorite, but now that I like regen Scorch yesterday, I'm getting much more into Ronin, who was only like level 6 before. Ronin and the new, we were just like, you were freaking out this morning about they released the update notes,
Coming
which
out
will be out
Wednesday.
a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So November 30th, if you're watching this after it's live. Ronin now, if he gets doomed, so once your health goes down as a Titan, your health will just be this yellow and red flashing bar, and you're pretty much done. And you can eject at any time at that point. But also, if someone melees you, it's an instant like assassination. Once Ronin's doomed, it'll automatically phase warp him out of the fight, which seems awesome because like he's tailored toward like close quarters, and I love just bomb rushing people and when they have no idea what to do, I just smoke them with my sword. That's why I like Scorch though, because I can like counter him easily.
And that's super cool. Like obviously they were gonna have some DLCs. I would have imagined them Respawn to have done maybe like a new Titan first.
Yeah.
But that makes me really excited because it's just wow, they're gonna tap into Titan kits. That almost makes more sense. That will bring me back for sure. Yeah. Try out the new ability for this Titan. Like I just think that's so cool. Yeah, and then I don't know that one of the things that got me all riled up was like executions, which is like your assassination for like in a Halo game. There's they added a new one where you basically phase warp inside someone's body and then reappear, so they explode around you. Is
like
what it says on paper. Yeah, Matrix
Neo, the Mr. Smith.
I gotta see that.
Yeah,
it's exciting, that game.
I don't want to linger. I do want to linger on Titanfall much longer, but we don't have a ton of time. I think it's all 3 of our favorite shooters this year, despite the fact that there are a ton of other shooters. I want to get into them now. I will say really quickly, if you haven't played Titanfall 2's campaign, which I think both of you have, it's only like 4.5, 5 hours long, but it's really good between the platforming, the pilot combat, the fact that you can swap Titan loadouts on the fly to adapt to the situation. Really well designed. There's a mission in there that's like one of my favorite, both of our favorite like missions in any shooter ever, and it's called Effect and Cause. That's all I'll say about it because you should experience it for yourself. It's about a little more than halfway through the game, I'd say. The campaign's really well designed. Story's not the greatest, but it's worth playing. I do want to. I just mentioned Overwatch, like that as well. Like might as well be tied. That's one of my favorite games of the year. Blizzard once again just goes into a new genre and nails it. It's so, despite the fact that there's 27 characters now, there's 25 to begin with, I believe. Now with Ana and Sombra introduced in the updates, I don't know. Like this, you have to be a lot more patient in this game than Titanfall. But we did talk about it, how especially with like the 3v3 mode now, I'm getting back into that and remembering why I love that game to begin with. It came out in March or May.
Yeah.
Sorry, March was like a few other games. I don't know. You and I both played Overwatch a lot this weekend, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Overwatch is definitely up there. I think I don't think I love it as much as everyone else does. But like when you have a team of 6 or even like a team of 3v3, like I don't want to talk about it too much, but that game is a lot of fun. Like when you get going, and the character diversity and all the, I don't know, there's so much to it. Like the Titans in Titanfall, each character has so many levels to it. Like there's so much you have to figure out, but at the same time, which has been said a lot too, but you just pick it up and play. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's easy to like figure out what one character is about, but it's not easy to master them. You see people like I don't know, like Eric Tay when he plays Mei. I'm like, oh shit, that's how Mei is supposed to be played, and I'm nowhere near that because I reviewed the game, I played a lot of it, and I've been getting back into it lately, but I still only have like 6 characters that I'm completely confident with out of like 27. There's 21 other characters who like I know how to play and I like playing them, most of them. I don't think there's any character I dislike playing. There are definitely characters I like get way more excited about to play if I have to play them, especially if you're doing random heroes. You're like, oh, I'm saddled with like Torbjorn, but then you start playing and you're like, okay, he's actually really fun, and to it, especially because people tend to hate him. But it's like I just mentioned this when we were talking about Titanfall 2, but I love this game because it changes based on who you're playing and who you're playing against. And the fact that Blizzard tried to do so much and also nailed it and still found balance and like precision, that's like crazy, especially with this many characters and this many maps and whatnot. Or they're not a ton of maps, but I don't know. They just found like this really good balance in this. And, you know, I could go on all day about like how Junkrat stacks up against Zarya and how Zarya, who's my favorite character, goes up against Hanzo and everything. But again, like just from the weapons everybody uses to the abilities they use to their ults, how they affect the game, like you learn when certain characters are good throughout a match. I don't know, Rob, did you play? You played like around launch, right? I remember you
Absolutely,
playing with us.
yeah. I think it's a freaking great game, obviously, and everyone here in our offices like speaks like just such appraisal for that game. And I think one of the reasons is it's got that wider demographic of like, hey, I don't have to be a Twitch shooter necessarily to play this game, right? Like I can be that support class, I can be this person and still really kill it in that respect. And I think that's, you know, in comparison to Titanfall, that's where I feel like maybe not many people have been in our office have been like into it, because there's everyone can find their own way of playing more so than like, you know, and because it ties so heavily to like MOBA elements and shooter elements, and it just brings so much to the table. Each character is like, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like not like poking fun, but almost like a pull on like different genres in the field. And,
definitely.
And that's where you can relate to X hero. And,
well, I mean, like talking about Titanfall, that Diva is kind of like clearly inspired by Titanfall,
Right.
someone that can get out of their mech and everything. You have, you know, characters like Widowmaker, McCree, who are probably more tailored to people who played a lot of Counter-Strike or anything.
Soldier
you have
76 is Call of Duty-ish.
Yeah, he's like the introduction. You have Farah, who's kind of like a Quake-ish character, high mobility and just like rockets and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. It definitely, it's really impressive how there are so many different ways to play the game, but it is really balanced. I mean, they've updated characters. Like Diva just got a buff recently to like up her health and everything. And then 3v3 mode came out. Sombra and Ana, I like both of those characters. Sombra a little more so. Again, one of the better games of the year, in my opinion. It's in my top 5, definitely.
I keep hearing about this 3v3 mode. Is that just because it's like more toned down, like better way of understanding these characters? Because I think that's where I'm at, is like it's intimidating.
You probably like it. It's elimination, so you only have one life unless Mercy revives you. But it's 3v3. It's best first to 3 round wins. So the match is like best of 3, best of 5. Sorry. And you go in with 3 characters. You start to understand the characters a little more because you're trying to survive more than just kill people and like push a point or push the payload and everything. It's much more, I think it's much more focused, but there are some characters that won't be as good in it as they would in like a regular 6v6. So yeah, I mean, if you're like us, it got us back into the game like recently. Cool. But yeah, definitely check that out. Then
Getting a big one.
What's that?
Battlefield 1.
Oh no, I'm not done yet. Okay. We got a couple more. We're going long today. We'll go to Battlefield and then we're gonna get into one that like, Battlefield 1, which is weird because I think if it wasn't for Titanfall and the fact that I was actually pretty psyched the more I learned about Call of Duty's campaign, Battlefield 1, between the campaign stories and just the overall like crazy scope of the multiplayer matches and how I usually don't like just call out a game's like visuals is something like that I love about it. Like, I mean, some games are good. Like Battlefield 1's really good looking game, between like the dewdrops on, especially on PC, obviously, like the dewdrops on your weapons, like when you crouch in the mud, you come back up. It feels very rooted in this setting, and a lot of people are saying it feels more like a World War II game, but I don't know. It's great. You're looking at the forest maps here. It's between the war stories, which is like the campaign, the actual stories they were telling, the characters in them, and how like varied they were, and then also just getting more into. I've been playing multiplayer matches in between other things, and I don't know. Like this game, again, you have to be a little more patient in this game than Titanfall or anything, or even Overwatch. But it's, I don't know. You could do so much more than just shoot at people in this game. You can, like, just hold a point at whether you don't see someone for like 15 minutes. It's up to you whether like how you want to play it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this game seems like the Battlefield game that I've been waiting for a while. Like I had a lot of fun with 3, I had a lot of fun with 4, but the problem is that there wasn't as much. The maps weren't as dynamic. Like you couldn't just knock out a building necessarily. And now this one feels like I have way more choice in what I'm doing. And then to add to that, like the game looks stunning. It's a spectacle. Like any match you load into, you just have this huge sort of playground in front of you, and there's 60 some people like running around. Like it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like on one layer you have these 3 different facets, right? You have air, land, and sea. In some cases, sea. But then you also have like ground combat. Then you have tanks, but it's also really impressive with how they coalesce and kind of make for this bigger battlefield. So you're not just worrying about running into a soldier around the next corner. You're worried like whether a tank's there and whether you should pull out your anti-tank rocket. I don't know, Rob. I think everybody's familiar with this now, but you love being a pilot.
Yeah, and that's fun because you that game is, yeah, Jake said it, like it's just spectacle and immersive. Like that's where I feel like I would come back to it, is just for that experience, right? Like I definitely love the air combat, but I think what's probably the best is to like play heavily in one area of a Battlefield map and then try out the land. Because what is always surprising to me is like, yeah, you're in a plane and you're just like wrecking people with like, an anti-tank gun or something like that. And then you get on the ground and then you look up and see what whoever is doing the exact same thing you were doing, and it's terrifying. Like you are just scared. You're like, wow, that was me earlier. Like some guy just crapping himself in a foxhole, and I'm just like, yeah, I missed that shot. Gotta go around and do it again. This guy's still there, like crying. Like there's a lot of those moments where it's just intense.
Yeah. Well, like dropping bombs out of planes, like what you were saying. Like you drop a bomb out of plane, you don't think about it. You just fly away. But then like cut to the guy on the ground and like a building just collapsed in front of him. And he's like, good thing I wasn't in there.
You fly and it's like, oh, I only got like 90% of his health. Like, oh, what a bust. And he's there and he's shaking. He's seeing red and like mud on his gun.
There are these great little moments in this game that you don't even think about until they happen. I mean, like just small, despite how big it is and how massive these maps are and how big the battles are, there are small details that you don't really realize how important they are until they're like happening. So when you're in like a bunker, for instance, that was a good timing. When you're in a bunker, it'll just be, you see the lights on the ceiling shaking when like artillery's pummeling the hill above you, and that sense of place that you get out of that, especially when you're all just hunkered down and dust is falling from the ceiling as a fucking Zeppelin crashes on this building nearby you. The way these battles unfold, like to say nothing about the dynamic weather, which is another way that can change things up between the sandstorms or the fog that rolls in. So I prefer to be a scout. And when fog rolls in, I'm like, shit. Now I'm just so terrified of assault, like someone playing assault just rushing at me out of the fog, and I can't do much aside from pull out my sidearm, like right here. I don't know. I love how these maps are huge, and it's not even like it's forcing you to play something different every time. You could just play it as a foot soldier every time if you want, but there's so many different ways to play this game. And again, that's why this year has been awesome for shooters, to say the least. And Battlefield 1 is kind of like a microcosm of why I love that. Like, again, to say very little about these, the war stories, I don't want to spoil much, but they are worth playing, definitely being the campaign and whatnot. Yeah.
I think at least one of my biggest takeaways from Battlefield 1 though has been if one front, I guess, isn't going so well, like if you're trying to take A and it's not going so well, then you go to C, and then it almost feels like a completely different battle is going on over here. And then you go to D, and like all the maps are so well designed, at least for the most part. There's a couple that I could do without, but I don't remember what it's called, but there's one where there's a bunker on a hill, and if you take this position, you have control of this anti-air gun. And me and my friend, it was like a squad of 3 of us or so, and it was just us trying to take this bunker, but there was like 12 people in there, and it was just so much fun, like trying to plan this attack with other people. Like it's something that you don't really see in, I guess, a multiplayer game. Like it was very slow. Like it's like, all right, so I'm going to go down this side. I'm going to try to take out this guy who is, I don't know what he's doing over here. Yeah. And then we try to go into the bunker, and then someone throws a grenade and that messes up. We try again. Like just the different ways you can play, kind of like what you're just saying. It's just an example of it, but it's it's really engaging.
Yeah, Battlefield 1 is one I'm going to keep returning to. Maybe not as often as some others, but it's definitely one of the more impressive games of the year. I do want to, like, quickly before I get into this last one, I want to talk a little bit more about, let's talk about Call of Duty. I think the campaign is actually worth playing to see how they did that, how they structured it between the seamless storytelling going between your ship and the, like, starships and then the planets you're going to. That campaign, the multiplayer didn't impress me much. It didn't really make any changes since Black Ops 3 or many changes. I do think this campaign's worth trying out, worth playing. It's pretty impressive in a lot of ways. Gears of War 4, I thought the game was good. I liked it. It was, like it still is like feels really good for a third-person shooter. The story wasn't my favorite, but the horde mode is great if you haven't played that. And then, Battleborn, if you're looking for a hero shooter, that came out before Overwatch, a couple months, and I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle because Overwatch was already in. You could already be playing it like early access, which I think that was probably on purpose because that was their main competitor. But Battleborn, I don't think did it as good a job as like finding focus, despite the fact that they were trying a lot of things. But around that time of year, also is this last one I'll talk about quickly. Not quickly, but is Doom, which I think surprised all of us. Maybe because it was a reboot. We're like, how are they really going to do well with this? How are they going to nail it? But one of my favorite games this year now. In a year like chock full of awesome shooters. And this game, even like compared to Titanfall, I think this game is like unmatched in how good it feels from moment to moment. Totally. And the campaign is probably my favorite like single player thing I've done this year, aside from like Uncharted or something. I'm watching gameplay right now and I already want to play it again. I had dreams about this game when I was playing it, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I don't usually say shit like that, but I really did. I would wake up in the morning
horrifying
and be thinking, well, I had nightmares about this game, but no, I would be the loop between, all right, I need ammo, so I'm gonna kill this guy with a chainsaw because the killing someone with a chainsaw always drops ammo. But then when I get enough ammo, I'm gonna need to find chainsaw fuel littered around the map. Holy shit, my health's low. That dude's glowing. I can do an assassination that will always give me health. Hold on, let me pull his arm off and beat him in the face with it.
And he's like across the map, so you're just like pushing away everyone, just singling them out. You know what I mean? You start doing like personal goals with that game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's you're seeing someone across a crowded room, and then you're locking eyes. Oh my god, they're just trying desperately to get out, but then you punch their heads off. The weapons feel awesome, like the double barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
And I love when you get into crazy firefights, just this heavy metal starts pumping through your speakers. You're getting after it.
It took me so long to finish the campaign of this game because I'd play a mission and my brain would just be like,
oh yeah,
my eyes would be bleeding. I'm like, I gotta stop. Like, this is like cool.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I think we all could say that. Like, I think I played that game like probably 3 hours on like just like pure nonstop carnage. And when hearing you say that, it's not a bad thing. It's like a cool thing.
It doesn't waste any time at all.
It's just cool.
You might be a little shaking after it, but like just all the power chords for every like elimination. Like what are they called? Glory kills.
Glory kills. Yeah, thank you.
Just those. Just those were I think I was getting some nightmare flashbacks. Not nightmares, but just like just that visual.
This
it's
game,
it's cool.
It doesn't waste any time getting you into it. It's like you're the Doom Marine. Here's a tablet. Like here's why they buried you. Here's a gun. Get into it. You kill a few guys right away, and then it opens up. It's like your next gun is like a few minutes later, and you're just this feels unreal.
It's the self-aware too, right? Like it's that intro where he's I forget what the main character is, or one of the main that AI robot who's kind of guiding you through.
Yeah,
like,
I know you're talking about.
We kind of messed things up here,
no shit.
You just go, God damn it! And you throw like the LCD into like, or you punch. Don't punch those. Yeah, it's like the upgrades.
You just needed to turn it off, and you just like sucks.
And then it's like you spoke of the chainsaw. I remember just for the first time in like many of games, like RPGs or anything like exploration based, where it's like here's like a page of like script.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get burnout on that, and I just want to continue to play the game. This was probably one of, if not the only games where I was super excited to read every bit of story in the weapon. Like when they start talking about the chainsaw, when you get it, it's the funniest thing. They're just like, yeah, we don't really understand why there's a chainsaw
on a space station.
Like, someone kind of just brought it up like
contraband.
As contraband. So it's just kind of here on Mars.
Well, but then you have everything. You like the collectibles and like exploring these maps, which are pretty open. I mean, they're linear open. I think they called it in Uncharted 4, whatever Naughty Dog was talking about. Like you can explore these like sandbox, and there's another one down the hallway. You want to find these collectibles. You're upgrading your suit. You're upgrading your just regular abilities. You're upgrading each weapon, and each weapon, when you get to like the master tier, it's just insane. Like the double barrel shotgun, like the reload is nothing, and you can shoot like they're showing it right here. It becomes nuts, and you're fighting these. This game gets tough if you're not like using your weapons.
I
And
played
like,
on one of the harder difficulties too, and like
Yeah.
I had trouble on that final boss. And
it says something that I had a rocket launcher in my main inventory the whole time, and I forgot sometimes. Like that's how crazy some of the weapons are. That like a rocket launcher took a back seat to a lot of like what I was.
well,
using.
the fully upgraded machine gun that shoots missiles instead of
Yeah,
that's
it's-
sick.
Oh, what?
Why
See, that's
not?
why it's such a freaking great campaign. Is with things like runes too,
Yeah.
and the division of like where a weapon can go with its like alternate mode is where you want to play it again. Like it was kind of a tough call. You had to choose between like I can't even remember them now, so long ago. But like the infinite mini micro missiles or like another one for like the machine gun. It was like shit. That's a tough call, but you got to do it. And the runes are great because by the end of it, and this is where I think like Titanfall 2, minor gripe, but it was like, oh, how cool would it be to replay Titanfall 2's campaign with every loadout right in the beginning, opposed to only getting the last few stretches with Legion, the minigun wielding Titan. Like this is where Doom, like for sure, was like, oh, I can't wait to play it again with all those runes and all those perks, and then play it on a higher difficulty. Like that's a really reward factor that's like so worthwhile to like tackle. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Doom is up there among like the greats of this year. This year was like seriously just like packed with Unreal shooters, and like we just talked about 4 for quite a while, and like we didn't even touch on some of the still great shooters. Like I thought Gears of War 4 was a good game. I thought Call of Duty's campaign was impressive. I liked some things about Battleborn. I don't think it all came together as much as we would have liked.
Hot.
Super Hot was also a really good game. Want to talk more about that at some point, but so again, that's not like anything about our game of the year yet. We'll have those discussions as a GameSpot group, but those are our favorites. Again, Titanfall 2 is probably mine in terms of, if I had to give a definitive answer, Titanfall 2 is my favorite shooter of the year. I think you guys would agree.
Yeah, I think so. Rob,
Dude,
Rob, probably not.
I wouldn't. Of 2016, I'm thinking like almost of all time. Sometimes I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, it's a great game. You should play it.
It reminds me of like playing Halo Combat Evolved in my garage till like by myself on Blood Gulch because I didn't have any friends who were over that at the time, and I would just practice.
Good correction there.
Just doing nothing in the game. Like, what am I doing? I'm not even doing it in this game. It's just like I just keep every time I turn on a PS4, I just think about playing Titanfall.
Yeah, Titanfall 2, great game. In general, so let us know what you think, what your favorite shooters are of the year, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. That was a long show today. We're wrapping it up now.
That was long.
People are getting tired and hungry. But yeah, damn, we talked about Titanfall 2 a lot.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing this weekend? We playing Titanfall 2?
I have to not play Titanfall 2. And play
Yeah.
Is it still
Thanksgiving.
going?
Thanksgiving in the U.S. Yeah, we're still going, but I was just tapping the segment. Yeah, we'll sign off. Stop making Richard Lee stand up for so long. No, just joking. Yeah, so anyway, obviously, like, stop for thanking. Wow, I'm tired. That was a long show. Thank you so much for everybody that watched, for stopping by. Jean-Luc in the back, Richard Lee on the camera right here, Eric Tay in back. I think Mary Kish was at her desk today doing like managerial stuff. But as always, we will be back next week at 2 p.m. If you're in the U.S., have a good Thanksgiving. And if you're everywhere else, have fun playing Titanfall 2. We'll see you next week.
Planet Coaster stream right now. See you guys then.
Oh.